Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you how to easily defeat the Dreglord in Elden Ring Nightreign. In this boss guide I'll be covering the weaknesses, best strategies, and tips and tricks to take this boss down easily. Now I want to first mention that Bleed is really effective here, especially in the first phase, because if you trigger a Bleed on him, he's actually going to get staggered out of all of his attacks there, and it does a ton of damage. Now his scaling does change once we get into the second phase of the fight, but in phase 1 he's actually going to be weak to slashing, piercing, fire, and holy damage. And Bleed, Frostbite, and Sleep are actually all pretty easy to proc. He only has a 252 resistance to those, which is pretty decent. Into the second phase, those change though. His defenses also increase a little bit, but the statuses are a lot more harder to inflict. Best Nightfarers for this are Wylder, Raider, Ironeye, Scholar, and Undertaker, but you can honestly go with any of them. I found Guardian actually really effective here because he can make it easier for you to get your damage in. Now for the first phase of this fight, I find most of the attacks are pretty well telegraphed, especially if you fought against Margit. I found his attacks are kind of similar in the timing for that, but you saw there we were actually able to get a Bleed proc off, which stunned him, which is super useful. But for the most part, stick to the right hand side because he mostly attacks with his weapon on the left there. If you have someone drawing aggro, you can stick to the backside and you won't get hit at all. Those large area of effect attacks, just get away from them and you can go in and punish afterwards. It's not worth staying nearby, but whenever he does the big ball and he holds it up in the air, you actually have to dodge near the end or get really far away from it, and it's going to damage in a huge area, and also apply Scarlet Rot. Now the Rotted Woods, shifting earth, can actually prevent you from getting any Scarlet Rot in the first phase of the fight, but into the second phase he removes that ability altogether. So it is pretty helpful to do that if you're able to shift it. Unfortunately, playing with random sometimes isn't always the most effective, but I would actually recommend trying to keep your all three people up at all times, just because spreading the aggro around allows you to break his posture a lot easier. This boss in particular, it's all about the momentum, and if you're able to break his posture, that's where you're likely going to get a lot of your damage in from. So yeah, it's best to go and revive people whenever possible, but you also want to be dodging kind of to the away from the side of his weapon there whenever you're going for the revives. And whenever he summons in all these enemies here, it's actually best to attack them and get rid of them because it's going to give him an attack buff. You'll see that below his health bar whenever he gets that, and he'll do that drawing in power to be able to absorb them. He doesn't get any extra health, but into the second phase, this is when his weaknesses will change. So he gets a 10% damage reduction across the board, and anything that he was previously weak to, he's going to be stronger against, and statuses are a lot harder to put on him. He also gets randomly a 999 sleep weakness, not immunity, but he's got still the ability to be put to sleep. Not very easy to do, so I wouldn't recommend going that road. He still can be bled and frostbite, and that's what I found to be actually the best combination. I put the chilling mist on my main hand weapon here because I found that was really nice. Sometimes you can just proc that and get it off in the area of effect. That attack there is one of the worst. Whenever he goes up in the air, you can see my reaction. I was a little bit shocked by that. Now I find in the second phase it's best to try and stick as close as possible to him, and obviously to the backside. Whenever he gets down to about half health, he's going to raise up pillars and he's going to start flying around off them. That's when it's really hard because you just have to keep an eye on him and unhook your camera even to be able to get a better view of this boss, because yeah, he becomes moving around really quickly and it's very hard to keep a track on him. So yeah, we want to be able to get the posture breaks off. That's why I mentioned trying to keep everybody alive at the same time is really important. Frostbite and Bleed can stagger him, but the posture breaks that comes from the high stance damage from Undertaker or Wylder, and that's why I think they're very essential. You can honestly get by with 3 Undertakers and have a really good time in this fight. I found that she's got a very good kit against this boss, much like the Scholar is really effective against the Balancers, but you can also apply poison, as you can see here on him. He has a very high resistance. It's 542, which is the same as his Scarlet Rot resistance, so you can actually apply Scarlet Rot on him, and it's a decent strategy, but I would honestly recommend Bleed and Frostbite over those two, just because the extra damage that you can apply to him and the percent health base is really useful too. But honestly, it's just the constant pressure to get the posture breaks off that makes a huge difference. This is kind of a DPS check. Level 14 was able to do it. If you got any questions, feel free to leave in the comments below. I hope you guys have a great day, and we'll catch you in the next one.